So I tried to make a video a minute ago, hitting all the buttons, going through all the stuff and just doing it live, and I'm a bit out of practice. So I got halfway through it and then started trying to enter stuff into the computer at that point, and you watching me not look at you or do anything on the screen seemed a bit silly, so I ditched it and started again. So because I lost the studio and I really want to set this up, and because the nature of this studio is different than the other one, I don't have room in here to really be doing interviews and stuff, although I have the equipment that I can do it. There are other places that I can go, and because these microphones only pick up what's really pointed at your face, we can do it in a much more hostile environment for audio. As long as there's not wind, then we can make do. Cameras are small, they can move. And I can record audio without a computer, and I can record out of all the cameras without a computer and then do it afterwards, which isn't ideal, but sometimes you have to do what isn't ideal. So the way I want to set up the studio, the way I want it to look, is steampunk, which is like if we kept the Victorian aesthetic and sort of their technology, but just started building modern stuff. So if a computer was built in the 1800s and mobile phones were built in the 1800s, and we never really got to glass and steel, we stayed more with copper and leather and wood. That's sort of the environment that I'm trying to create in this studio without any money. So a monitor you can pull out of its case because now they're only this thick, so it doesn't really matter. Stick some brass around it, copper around it. A lot of the metal things I've got in here, like this boom arm, I can paint black and paint the little nubs copper and maybe add some Hujima flickies to it to make it look a little bit better. So I can do that, but we get to points that are a bit funny. But in 1987, guy created the steampunk, maybe not the aesthetic, but the expression steampunk, the term steampunk. K.W. Jester in his sci-fi novels. To be honest, I have no idea what the names of them are, but look up steampunk, and other than the very, very, very sexual overtones that you get out of a lot of the particularly the female clothing, that's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's sometimes alright to look at, but it's the machinery. So a couple of films have had this sort of machinery. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is the only thing extraordinary about that film, is the way it looks and how bad it was. It was extraordinary. It could have been a really good film, but they just But the aesthetic of it was pretty cool. What else? Iron Sky, that one where the Germans, all the Nazis didn't die at the end of the war. I mean, the ones that didn't get employed by the US government or moved to the dark side of the moon, and they've been setting up a base up there, so that's a bit not quite the same aesthetic, but steam-powered spaceships and stuff is kind of neat. So let's click over onto here. This is a steampunk computer. So conventional sort of monitors, and if you have a look, the conventional sort of speakers inside, horns to make them look like they're not conventional, but if you don't do it that way, you just don't end up with modern sound. I think it's funny that there's an iPhone sitting on the table there, but wood, brass, copper, leather, things like that. There's another one. See, using older stuff. So on the left hand side, that sort of computer thing's sitting on an old sewing machine. It actually even says Singer, so it's sitting on a treadle table. And in the other bigger computer with the monitor on the right hand side there, that's actually an old press, like an old printing press. It's an old dentist's chair or barber's chair. So I'm not quite going to go that far. The chair's not really going to show up in the video. So chair's not going to show up in the video. So it doesn't really matter if you can see it or not. But the whole table environment. So if I'm ever doing a overhead shot, so we can see what I'm doing, what I'm looking at, how things are going. Now the problem I do have is this. Somehow I want to turn this area into a steampunk sort of environment. Now, I have a steampunk keyboard coming and mouse, so that isn't a problem. This glass table, I can deal with. Paint, bit of veneer, fine. But this is the problem here. They're only two different colors, and basically none of those buttons there get used. So I can make a facade for that. But steampunk and multiple colors and sliders and a touch screen, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. So I can stick a thin veneer over it. Even core flute and contact, which wouldn't be ideal, but it means I won't compromise the product at all. But if you have a look at the old the steampunk things, somehow I want to turn this area. I've already looked at that. If you have a look at the steampunk things, a lot of them have round, not square buttons. So you know your grandma's old dresser and stuff that didn't have square things on it. It was round. So I have a few artifacts floating about, an old fire extinguisher, a couple of old bug sprayers, and a couple of other things that I can either leave dingy or polish up to fit the aesthetic, or pull them apart to create the aesthetic that I'm after. And then I have the 3D printer to print gears, cogs, knobs, slides, buttons, and then just spray paint the things. Haven't quite worked out how I'm going to do it. Anyway, that's where I'm going. That's what I'm thinking. There's no actual point to it, but then there's no actual point to playing video games or buying a flash Maserati. If it's what you like and what you want to do, this is creative. This will tie up some of my lack of time. But again, I find the more you have to do, the more you get done. So to people out there that are hobbling around on moon boots, be excellent to yourself, be excellent to each other, and to everybody else. Be excellent to yourself, be excellent to each other. If you can't be good at it. And really, that's all I've got to say about that.